Heartwarming moment. Single mom brings son to blind date. Discover the incredible response from the community. Sarah stepped into the bustling diner, her heart pounding like a drum. The air was thick with the aroma of sizzling bacon and sweet pancakes, while laughter and chatter floated around her like a comforting blanket. She had just graduated from nursing school, but tonight felt like an entirely different challenge. Nervously, she glanced at her date, who sat at a table, twisting his napkin with anxious fingers. Beside her, 7-year-old Max clung to her leg, his big eyes scanning the room as if searching for escape routes. Sarah instantly felt a tightening in her chest. How could she be pursuing a new beginning when she was tightly anchored to a little boy who feared the world? As they settled into the cozy booth, the walls adorned with memorabilia felt both inviting and overwhelming. The laughter of families filled the air surrounding them. Sarah introduced Max with a bright smile, but she could feel the discomfort radiating from her date. With every awkward attempt at conversation, tensions grew thicker. Max's small frame trembled beside her, and she could see his unease mirrored in the quick glances he cast around the diner. Then, out of nowhere, an elderly couple from a nearby booth leaned in, drawn to the palpable discomfort surrounding Sarah and her date. They began to share their own love story, a beautiful tapestry woven through years of struggle and resilience. Their words echoed through the diner like a warm embrace, igniting nostalgia in the diners. Suddenly, laughter erupted as strangers became friends over shared experiences of love lost and found. Sarah watched as the shadows of anxiety began to lighten around Max, who timidly smiled at the couple's animated storytelling. However, the comfort faded when her date shifted in his seat, discomfort etched on his face. "Kids can complicate things, you know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Just as Sarah felt her hopes dim, she glanced down at Max. In that moment, a spark ignited within him, a brave little flame. "You don't have to be afraid of me. I'm just here with my mom. It's hard sometimes, but she's really brave." His voice, though small, echoed loudly in the diner as silence fell. Her heart soared as she observed the mixture of shock and admiration on the faces of the elders. Here was her son, expressing his vulnerability with incredible honesty. The tension melted, replaced by a collective sigh of realization. Patrons exchanged glances, moved by the simple yet profound insight that cut through adult pretense. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension hung in the air as the diner took a collective breath, leaning into the possibility of connection and acceptance. Sarah's heart raced as she watched her son reclaim his dignity in the face of misunderstanding, and a new resolve blossomed within her. She wouldn't allow her circumstances to define her. But the uncertainty churned inside her, tugging at the edges of hope. Would her date choose to stand by their side, or would he retreat, influenced by the weight of the world's judgments on single parenthood? The air felt electric, thick with anticipation, as the diner awaited a response, leaving everyone to wonder if this moment would heal wounds or create deeper divides. For a moment, time stood still. Sarah held her breath, her heart pounding as she searched her date's eyes for any hint of compassion or understanding. The diners around them seemed to hold their breath too, the atmosphere charged with a palpable energy that dared him to embrace this unexpected scene unfolding before them. Finally, he broke the silence. His lips pursed before he sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping slightly, as if the weight of a decision hung upon him. "I didn't mean to sound harsh," he began, his voice steadying. "It's just, I didn't expect all of this tonight. I've never been around kids much." He glanced briefly at Max, who remained quiet, assessing the situation with wide eyes. "But I see what you mean," he continued, his tone softening. "Your son is brave, Sarah. I admire that." A small flicker of hope ignited within Sarah. Could it be? Could he understand? "Thanks," Sarah whispered, feeling gratitude wash over her. Max, sensing the shift in energy, smiled broadly now, his little frame puffing with pride. She reached down and gently ruffled his hair, unable to suppress her own grin. Their date resumed, reintroduced by laughter and easy banter. The elderly couple continued to share their story, weaving in bits of advice that felt relevant to Sarah's life. Each anecdote seemed to reassure her that human connections, with all their complexities, were worth pursuing. As she listened, her heart warmed. Max began to engage too, asking questions and offering his own perspectives. He spoke about his favorite superheroes and how brave they were, drawing parallels between them and his mom. Each word from him was a brick in the wall of anxiety that had threatened to crumble their evening. "Can we be like superheroes, Mom?" he asked, eyes sparkling. "We can be brave together." With a beaming smile, Sarah nodded. "Absolutely, Max. We already are." Through this exchange, her date began to smile back, the corners of his mouth lifting in response to their bond. It was a moment of connection that melted away the initial apprehension. Perhaps this evening was not the disaster she'd feared. But just as things were looking up, the cracks began to show again. In the middle of laughter, Sarah suddenly caught sight of a familiar face entering the diner. It was Greg, her ex, his presence like a sudden storm cloud casting a shadow over her newfound light. Her heart sank as he scanned the room, his eyes locking onto hers with piercing intensity. "What is he doing here?" she muttered under her breath, panic gripping her. "Mom." Max looked up, bite-sized muffin frozen halfway to his mouth. "Who is that?" Her date followed her gaze, looked from her to Greg, and frowned. "Is everything okay?" The moment felt heavy as Sarah tried to gather her thoughts. What would Greg demand? What awkwardness could he inflict on tonight's fragile peace? She had taken such a risk to embrace happiness again. Max's innocent question echoed in her ears, urgency clawing at her heart. "Do I hide?" "No." Sarah found her voice, turning to face the unfolding storm. "This is my moment." Not his. As she straightened her shoulders, she realized the truth she had been clinging to was fully here. Life was unpredictable, and it was worth the fight. But what would Greg do? Would he shatter this moment, or could she confront him and stand her ground? The next moment loomed ahead like a fork in the road, brimming with uncertainty. Sarah took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Sarah felt the air change as Greg approached their table, blocking the little flickers of joy that had just begun to dance around her heart. Every step he took felt like it echoed through the diner, drawing the attention of those seated nearby. She could sense the curious eyes upon them, her emotions swirling like a tempest inside her. "Sarah," Greg called, his voice smooth, yet laced with an edge that made her pulse quicken. He wore that same confident smirk that had once charmed her, now twisted into something more demanding. "Fancy seeing you here." "Greg," she replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. He settled into the empty seat across from her without invitation, glancing at Max with curiosity. "Who's this little guy?" he asked, feigning a casual tone. But Sarah could hear the underlying tension that dripped from his words. "This is Max, my son." She felt Max sink slightly into his chair, as if trying to fold into himself. Sarah reached out and squeezed his hand, grounding them both. "We're having dinner." "Nice to meet you." Greg's eyes flickered with something unreadable, and Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Max, ever the brave one, sat up straight. "Are you a superhero too?" His question was innocent, but it sliced through the tension like a hot knife through butter. For a moment, Greg seemed caught off guard. The corners of his mouth tightened slightly, then he half smirked. "Not quite, buddy. Just your average guy." "He.S. a really brave mom," Max added, his small voice filled with honesty. "She doesn't need a cape." A spark of pride swelled in Sarah's chest, even as Greg's eyes narrowed, his expression darkening. "Bravery can be overrated, don't you think?" Greg challenged lightly, but there was nothing light about it. This was a jab, a calculated attempt to undermine this moment that Sarah had fought to hold on to her date, who had been sitting quietly, finally interjected, his voice forthrightly calm. "Actually, I think it's pretty brave to put yourself out there. It takes courage to start fresh, especially as a parent." Greg shot him a look that betrayed irritation. "Sure, but sometimes it's smarter to stick to the familiar." The air thickened as Sarah could feel the battle lines drawn, her heart racing. Who was Greg to dictate her choices? "I'm not sticking with what's familiar, Greg," she said, voice rising slightly. I'm moving forward. Can't you just go? He leaned closer, almost mockingly. You think you can just pretend I don't exist? I have rights, Sarah. Rights? She echoed, astonishment flooding her veins. What about my rights? To live my life? To be happy? Her words hung in the air, daring him to respond. The diners around them had turned their attention fully to the spectacle, eyes glancing between the three of them as the tension built. Sarah could feel their stares, part sympathy, part intrigue. Max's little hand squeezed hers tighter. Mom, you're the bravest lady I know. His declaration rang true, cutting through the suffocating atmosphere. Her heart swelled again, but this time, it was mixed with a resolve she hadn't felt before. This was about more than just her. It was about Max. She wouldn't let Greg poison their evening, their lives. Greg, this is not a conversation for here. She stood up then, slamming her palms on the table, rattling the silverware. You're not destroying this moment. Not tonight. As she started to walk out, she caught her date's eyes, full of admiration and surprise. She felt a rush of bravery, knowing she was taking back her narrative, stepping away from the shadows Greg had cast her into. But as they walked towards the door, she could sense Greg's gaze burning into her back. Would he let things go or escalate this confrontation? Was he prepared to make a scene? As they stepped outside, Sarah felt renewed, even as doubt clawed at the edges of her confidence. Mom. Max looked up at her, a mixture of worry and hope on his innocent face. Yeah, bud? Can we still be superheroes? His small voice carried the weight of the world. Yes, Max, she said with determination, pulling him close. We are superheroes. Always. But even as she spoke, uncertainty laced her heart. Would the battle she had just started come to haunt them later? Would Greg fight back? The warmth of the evening faded into a cool breeze, a reminder that their challenges were far from over. As they stepped outside, the cool breeze washed over Sarah like a wave, invigorating yet sobering. She glanced down at Max, who was looking up at her with bright, trusting eyes. She swallowed hard, wishing she could fully convince herself of the heroics she had just promised. Mom, Max's voice broke the silence. Do you think that guy is mad at us? Her heart sank a little. I don't know, buddy. But we can't let other people's feelings stop us from enjoying our time together. Are you going to fight him? A mixture of concern and curiosity danced across Max's face. No, sweetie, she reassured him, hoping to instill a little courage in herself as well. Not fight like that. I want to be brave and just do what feels right. Max nodded, his small brow furrowing as he processed her words. I want to be brave too. So we'll stand up to bad guys, right? Yes, she smiled, fighting back the swell of unwanted emotion. Just like superheroes. She bent down to ruffle his hair, grateful for his pure heart, which shone through their chaotic evening. As they walked hand in hand, the diner's warm glow faded behind them, replaced by the soft glow of street lights. The world around them was so mundane, so ordinary, yet Sarah felt an urgent spark blooming within her. This moment with Max felt monumental, more significant than any fancy dinner. Hey, can we get ice cream? Max piped up, his voice brightening at the thought. Absolutely. She smiled, feeling the tension from the confrontation eased just a bit. It's superhero fuel. The idea of celebrating their little adventure made Sarah's heart swell. They turned to a nearby ice cream shop, and as they entered, the familiar scent of waffle cones and cold cream enveloped them. Max was already bouncing on his feet, scanning the colorful choices with kid-like awe. Look, Mom, they have chocolate chip cookie dough, and look at that rainbow swirl. Get what you love, buddy, she said, watching as he excitedly pointed to flavors. In this small moment, surrounded by laughing kids and families, she could blend in, be just another mom enjoying an outing with her son. But just as she felt the weight of the world lifting, the door chimed again. Greg walked in, a shadow against the bright lights. Sarah's heart dropped, panic washing over her. She instinctively stepped closer to Max, shielding him. What are you doing here? Greg's voice was dripping with confrontation. Not here, Greg, she whispered, anxious now. She grasped Max's hand tighter, feeling him tense beside her. Max looked up, confusion clouding his face. Mom, is he another bad guy? No, honey, he's not, but before she could finish, Greg interjected. Sarah, you can't run away from this. His eyes flared with something she couldn't name, but it chilled her. Can you stop? She snapped back, the bravery from before threatening to fade as the walls began closing in again. You're ruining this for us. Maybe you need to face the truth. Before she could respond, ice cream orders were ready, and customers were moving about. In that swirling chaos, Max turned to her, a flicker of fear present in his eyes. Mom, I want to leave. Okay, she said softly, fighting to control the rise of panic in her chest. But she could feel Greg's stare boring through her, a silent challenge looming over them. Let us get our ice cream to go, she suggested, taking a deep breath. But as she turned to walk past Greg, he stepped in front of her, blocking the way. This isn't over. You know it. The words hung heavy. Sarah could feel Max's hand trembling in hers. This confrontation was spilling over, threatening their brief escape into joy. Could she really escape this? Mom, Max whispered again, his innocent voice tugging at her heart. Would their superhero moment turn into another battle? I promise, Max, she said with fierce conviction. We're going to be okay. But as she stood there, facing the storm she thought she could outrun, uncertainty settled over her like a thick fog. What would it take to truly break free? The door swung open behind Greg, and Sarah risked a look back, her heart pounding. Was there a way out of this? Would she find her footing, or would this be the moment that changed everything? With her heart racing, Sarah felt the weight of Greg's presence pushing down on her like a brick wall. Max's small hand gripped hers, his knuckles white. Each second felt like an eternity, caught between the ordinary sweetness of ice cream and the jagged edges of confrontation. Greg shifted, his eyes narrowing. You can't just pretend all of this is fine. You're running away from everything, he said, his voice low but cutting. Leave us alone, Greg, she said, forcing the words out despite the tremor in her voice. Her resolve was faltering, yet she needed to stand firm for Max. This moment wasn't just about her anymore. She had a little man to protect. Max, Greg said, leaning slightly down. I think it's best for you to know the truth. Your mom. Max blurted out, panic in his voice. I want to go home. Okay, buddy, Sarah said quickly, kneeling beside him. She wanted to shield him from this storm, to gather all the hope and peace she could muster. We're just going to get our ice cream to go, right? Max's eyes darted to Greg, searching for reassurance that this was just a blip, a bump on their icy road. In that split second, she saw both fear and trust. It pummeled her heart. Mommy, please, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos of laughter and clinking spoons. She nodded, smoothing her palm over his hair. Yes, we're leaving. Turning back to Greg, she took a breath, grounding herself. Let us pass. We don't need this right now. Greg stepped aside, but not without a last jab. You can't pretend forever, Sarah. The truth has a way of catching up. Ignoring him, she led Max to the counter, her heart thundering fiercely in her chest. Every step felt both like a leap into freedom and a dangerous tightrope walk. As they reached the cashier, she ordered their treats, trying to maintain an air of normalcy. Can I have 2 chocolate chip cookie dough for the superheroes? She asked, smiling down at Max, whose little face was lighting up again. Will it really make me brave? He asked, his excitement flickering back. Absolutely, she said, genuinely laughing this time. The best kind of superhero fuel. As the cashier handed over their cones, she guided Max out of the shop, the cool evening air rushing in to embrace them. She could feel her predicament behind her, but pushed forward, letting the delicious flavors lift their spirits. They walked back down the street, and for a moment, everything felt manageable again. The sun was setting, painting the sky with strokes of pink and gold, a reminder that there was still beauty to be found in the world. But then, Max paused, turning to face her with wide eyes. Mom, what is facing the truth? Is it like fighting bad guys? Sarah knelt down, meeting his gaze. Sometimes, it's about being brave enough to confront what scares us. It doesn't mean we can't be happy at the same time, though? He nodded, soaking in her words. Like superheroes, right? Exactly. As they resumed their walk, Sarah couldn't shake the weight of Greg's words. What truth was she avoiding? What would it mean for Max when everything unraveled? Suddenly, she felt an unsettling twist in her gut. If standing up for herself was the first step, then what would come next? Mom, look, Max shouted, pointing toward a small park bustling with kids playing tag. They had made it to safety, a moment for laughter before heading home. But could she truly keep the shadows at bay? What do you say to a few minutes of play? Max beamed. Yes. Superheroes need to play. As he dashed ahead, a part of her wanted to follow. But another part lingered, wondering what awaited her in their near future. Would they face the truth together, or would fear hold them back? The echoes of Greg's ultimatum kept reverberating in her heart. She took a deep breath, hopeful yet anxious, and made her way to the playground to eye in their new adventure. Would they become the heroes of their own story, or would truths and shadows chase them back into the dark? The playground was alive, laughter ringing through the air like music. Max dove straight into the fray, playing tag with a group of kids who seemed just as wild and carefree as he was. Sarah stood back for a moment, watching the joy radiate from him. It felt like a tiny victory, a sliver of peace, but as she leaned against the cool metal of the slide, her heart still pounded with unease. Questions buzzed in her mind like persistent little flies. What did Greg know? What could her choices cost them both? Mom, I'm a superhero, Max yelled, his joy bubbling over as he mimicked a dramatic leap, arms outstretched, then landing with a flourish. Show me that again, she called back, forcing herself to focus on him and not the storm brewing in her head. He ran back, face flushed and wide-eyed. Did you see? I can fly? Yes. You were fantastic. But inside, her worry continued to tighten like a vice. The moment was precious, but the reality was far more complicated. Was she really strong enough to defend him from the truths that lingered, waiting to break free? Max tugged her hand, pulling her from her thoughts. Play with me, Mommy. Please. Her heart melted a little. She couldn't deny his request. Okay, just for a few minutes. As they joined the game, Sarah felt a flicker of joy mixing with her anxiety, a delicate balance. They rushed around, and she let out genuine laughter, the sound like sunlight breaking through clouds. Max's laughter was infectious. It made her forget, if only for a moment, the weight of impending truths. But as they spun in circles, she heard a familiar voice call out, stark and slicing through her bubble of happiness. Sarah. Her stomach dropped. It was Greg, lurking at the edge of the playground. He stood there with an expression that twisted her insides. We need to talk, he said, his tone insistent even from afar. Compassionate chaos ensued around them. Other parents watched their children, some passing glances at the uninvited tension. Sarah stiffened, feeling their eyes on the situation, the undercurrents swirling in weighty silence. She glanced at Max, who was oblivious, laughing as he played with his new friends. Just a second. She called back to Greg, swallowing hard and trying to collect her thoughts. Greg shook his head slightly. No, Sarah. Now. We can't keep doing this. I need answers. Max deserves to know. For a moment, uncertainty wrestled deep inside her. She wanted to shield Max from the tempest even now, while he was blissfully unaware. But part of her understood Greg's urgency, that this couldn't be ignored forever. Why here? She called, hoping to gain some control over the situation. Not in front of him. Can't you just go? But Greg approached, relentless. I'm not leaving until we figure this out. Panic rose in her throat. She didn't want this discussion. Not now. Let me finish playing with him. We can talk later. Please. Mommy. Max yelled, suddenly aware of the tension. He appeared back at her side, worry crossing his face. What's wrong? Sarah knelt down, voice steady despite the chaos raging inside of her. Nothing, sweetie. Just a grown-up conversation. Max's eyes flicked between her and Greg, uncertainty lingering. But I want to know the truth too. In that moment, Sarah felt her heart fracture. It was like a card tower collapsing. Everything she feared was about to unfold before her. The laughter and joy shattered, replaced with the heavy weight of reality. Could she find the strength to confront the shadows in their lives? And what would that mean for her superhero son? Mom? Max asked again, and she looked into his innocent blue eyes, realizing she was running out of time. Maybe it's time to face the truth, she whispered, her heart racing as she prepared for what came next. Would they emerge stronger together, or would they drown in their own secrets? The moment hung in the air, heavy and electric. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. Okay, Max, she started, her voice trembling slightly. There's something we need to talk about. Greg's eyes narrowed, urgency radiating off him. You can't keep him in the dark anymore, Sarah. He deserves to know where he came from. What really happened? Max crossed his arms defiantly. I'm not scared. I want to know. His innocence pierced through Sarah like a sharp blade, both beautiful and excruciating. All right, she said carefully, kneeling again so she could look deep into his eyes. But I need you to promise me something. This might feel confusing. Can you trust me? Max nodded, albeit hesitantly. I trust you, Mommy. She took another breath, the words just a whisper. Your dad, Greg, he's not just someone you see sometimes. There's a lot we didn't talk about before. Your birth things didn't go the way we had planned. A flicker of confusion crossed Max's face. Why didn't you tell me? Why do I only see him sometimes? Greg stepped closer, wanting to be included. Max, I want to be part of your life. I always have. There were things we needed to work through. Sarah's heart pounded. She could see the wheels turning in Max's mind, the innocent questions colliding with the heavy truth. What things? He pressed. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetie, you didn't do anything wrong. Sarah rushed to explain. It's just people aren't always perfect. And sometimes, grown-ups have to make tough choices. Max's brow furrowed deeply, the worry etched into his features. Like how you said my name means greatest and my dad isn't around. Is that a choice? The simplicity of his words cut deep. She felt tears forming, longing to protect him from this hard reality. I can't change the past, Max, but I can promise you that I will always love you. You're my greatest treasure. Greg, sensing the emotional tide, added softly, and I love you too, buddy. I just want a chance to be your dad, to be here for you. Max looked from Sarah to Greg, searching for understanding. But why didn't you just come back sooner? A silence fell, the weight of the question hanging like thick fog. Sarah glanced at Greg, his face crumbling slightly, revealing the regret he had carried. Sometimes, he began, voice low, I had to figure out my own life. I thought it was best for everyone if I stayed away. Max's confusion morphed into something more, an inkling of betrayal. So I just had to wait. Sarah started, but her voice caught in her throat. The boy she adored was grappling with pain, and nothing felt fair. She had fought fiercely for his happiness, yet here they were, breaking apart in front of him. I didn't want to wait, Max said, his voice catching, making Sarah's heart tear. I wanted to play superheroes with both of you. The tears that had threatened now streamed freely down Sarah's cheeks. She wiped them away, desperate for strength. And you can, honey. We can be a team. Max wrinkled his nose, as though trying to reconcile the mess that was being laid bare. But it's not fair. No, it's not, Greg admitted, stepping closer to kneel beside Max. Life can be really unfair sometimes, but we can change how it goes from here. Sarah watched as Max's small fists began to unclench, the tension easing slightly. So you want to try? More than anything, Greg replied earnestly. Max looked between them, uncertainty still clouding his features. Okay, but can we go back to playing now? I want to be a superhero again. Of course. Sarah smiled through her tears, the ache in her heart softening. Let us be superheroes together. As they stood and joined the fray once more, she felt the burden lighten just a little. Maybe they could find a way through this storm together. The laughter resumed, but the shadows lingered nearby. Could they truly mend what had been broken? And was Max ready to bear the weight of both love and truth? The playground buzzed with excitement around them, but Sarah's heart raced, knowing that the hardest part was still ahead. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the playground as laughter echoed all around. Sarah felt a flicker of hope in her chest, a belief that maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild what had been lost. Yet, with each joyful shout and happy squeal, a tiny voice in her mind reminded her that clarity was still needed. Mommy! Max's voice pulled her from her thoughts. His wide eyes sparkled with mischief. Can we really be superheroes? Like for real? Absolutely. She beamed, wiping the remnants of her earlier tears. The idea of transforming into fierce protectors, even if just in play, brought warmth to her heart. Yet the weight of truth still loomed. Okay, I'll be Supermax, he declared, his arms outstretched like a soaring eagle, the hesitant boy from moments ago fading into a brave hero. Greg watched with admiration, a shadow of something deeper flickering in his gaze. Here was this boy, full of life and potential, caught in a web of complexity neither of them had woven intentionally. And I'll be your sidekick, he joined, puffing out his chest with pride. Without another moment of hesitation, Max raced off toward a nearby tree, pretending it was a towering villain. Sarah followed close behind, slipping into the moment. Laughter erupted, and for a while, the playground felt like a sanctuary. The other parents watched curiously, a few offering smiles filled with appreciation for the trio, but in the back of Sarah's mind, the heavy truth weighed still. Grown-ups when faced with love sometimes faltered, and she was no exception. As they chased one another, dodging imaginary bullets and vaulting over non-existent obstacles, an older couple sitting nearby exchanged glances that spoke volumes. The woman, with a knowing smile, leaned over to her partner. "You can see the love there," she said. "Yeah, it's beautiful," he replied, his voice gentle. His gaze lingered on Greg, who was now a wild superhero trying to catch Max, who was too fast for anyone. "Hope they find their way." Sarah felt their eyes, the warmth of strangers extending comfort. She caught Greg's glance again. He tossed Max in the air, sending him into a fit of giggles. As Max landed safely, Sarah felt a swell of gratitude. Still, the memory of their earlier conversation nagged at her. She wanted to ask Greg where they stood, how in the world they could navigate parenthood together with all the complications swirling around them. She needed to know if he was committed, ready to face all of it head-on. "Hey, guys," she called out during a slightly calmer moment. Max slowed down to catch his breath, eyes sparkling, while Greg straightened up, wiping sweat off his brow. "Let us take a break," she suggested, leading them to a bench. The air was thick with anticipation, and as they sat, the lightheartedness faded just a bit, replaced by the weight of their unresolved tension. "Max," she began softly, "can we talk for a minute? Just us?" Max's face fell slightly, the frown quickly masked by the hope of the next game. "Do I have to?" "No, buddy, not at all. You can keep playing, all right?" She watched him dash off again, a breath escaping her lips. Turning back to Greg, she saw his brow scrunched in thought. "We need to figure out how to do this right. For him and for us," she whispered, trying to suppress the urgency attempting to take hold. His eyes met hers, and the resolve there was unmistakable. "I know," he said, voice low but steady. "Let us be honest with each other. We owe him everything." Sarah nodded, feeling both the warmth of resolve and the chill of uncertainty. Could honesty rebuild their fragmented lives? She could feel the storm brewing in their conversation, threatening to change everything again. As they prepared for the deeper conversations that lay ahead, an unexpected twist shimmered in her mind. What if the truth wasn't just painful, but ultimately freeing? Just then, a shrill voice rang out. "Watch this," Max shouted, launching himself off a small mound, with arms outstretched like wings. Sarah's heart raced at the audacity of his leap. Time seemed to stretch as she watched him soar, a chaotic mixture of nerves and awe sweeping through her. Would they be able to catch him before he fell? And more importantly, would they be brave enough to share all the secrets that could bind them together forever? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she watched Max defy gravity, his little body suspended in the air for what felt like an eternity. Panic surged through her veins, but when he landed with a roll and bounced up, laughter spilling from his lips, relief washed over her. "Did you see that?" he exclaimed, running back towards the bench, his cheeks flushed with excitement. "Supermax," Greg cheered, clapping for him. For a moment, the weight of their earlier discussion vanished in the face of this joyful display of childhood. Sarah smiled, amazed by how resilient Max was, effortlessly pulling them both back into the present. But as Max gleefully reenacted his heroic leap, Sarah's heart thudded louder, reminding her of their unfinished conversation. She wanted to shield Max from everything that could hurt him, even if it meant addressing the very things that worried her. "Max, can you give us a minute?" she asked again, more firmly this time, but still with a gentle tone. "We need to talk about something important." Her son shifted slowly, his spirit deflating a bit as he glanced back at the tree, the imaginary villain still lurking there, waiting to be conquered. Fine, his voice was a reluctant sigh. "Why don't you play with that group over there?" Greg suggested, nodding toward a cluster of kids. "They look like they could use a hero." Max hesitated only a moment before grinning wide again. "Okay." He bolted toward his new audience, leaving Sarah and Greg alone at the bench, surrounded by fading sunlight and lingering laughter. The moment stretched infinitely as silence settled between them, both feeling the weight of everything unsaid. Sarah looked at Greg, trying to prepare her heart to leap into the deep end of their conversation. All right, she started, anxiously twisting her bracelet. We need to figure out how we're going to be a family. What happens next? Greg sighed, rubbing the back of his neck like he always did when he was deep in thought. I've been thinking about that too, he admitted. I want to be there for both of you. I'm tired of feeling unsure about what we are. His honesty cut through the anxiety swirling in Sarah's chest. So where does that leave us? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to build this together, he said firmly. I know we've got a lot to work through, but I want that. I want us to be honest about what we want, not just for ourselves, but for Max. Do you think we can pull it off? She searched his eyes, seeking assurance. The uncertainty of their steps forward loomed like the shadow of the sunset behind them. Believe me, he replied, his voice steady. If we do this together, I think we can. We just have to take those first steps. The warmth of his words wrapped around her, feeling both comforting and terrifying. Could they really build a life together, surrounded by the love they felt for Max? Or would the truth complicate everything even further, breaking them apart again? Just then, Max came charging back, cheeks bright as ever. They're playing tag. Can I join? Of course, Super Max. Greg encouraged, and Max took off like a rocket, laughter trailing behind him. Sarah watched their son zoom away, heart swelling with a mix of pride and fear. What if they didn't succeed? What if turbulence disrupted their fragile progress? But as she glanced back at Greg, she saw a determination mirrored in his eyes, one that told her the promise of something better was within reach. As the sun began to set, bathing the playground in its soft glow, Sarah felt a flicker of possibility igniting in her heart. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Hey, have you guys decided on the latest superhero movie? It was Max's best friend, Emma, and her mom, both approaching the bench with enthusiasm. The lightness of laughter returned, but this time Sarah felt a tremor of hope mingling with the still looming uncertainty. As conversations resumed around her, an idea wormed its way into her mind, a chance to turn this moment into something lasting. What if they could redefine family? Could a movie night together be the first step toward building something real? And what other surprises awaited them in their journey of rediscovering love? Sarah took a deep breath, her heart steadying as the laughter and chatter of the playground enveloped her like a hug. She watched Max, his unrestrained joy lighting up the evening. In that moment, surrounded by families and laughter, she felt the weight of her earlier fears start to dissolve, replaced by a glimmer of hope. Hey, Emma, Max shouted, dashing toward his friend who was eager to pull him into a game of tag. Sarah's laughter bubbled up, the joy radiating from her son, washing away the remnants of tension that had gripped her earlier. Greg turned to Sarah, a soft smile decorating his lips. He looks so happy, he said, gesturing toward the kids chasing each other. That's what it's all about, right? Yes, she replied, eyes sparkling as she nodded. His happiness is everything. As they watched the children play, the shadows of doubt began to lift. They both felt the heaviness of past mistakes, hurt feelings, and wounds that hadn't fully healed. But this moment, it felt like a turning point. Do you really want to try this? She asked, her voice steady, but laced with vulnerability. Be a family together? Greg locked eyes with her, sincerity reflected in his gaze. I do, Sarah. More than anything. But we need to be real about our past to acknowledge it, not let it weigh us down. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the world in hues of orange and gold. For the first time, the thought of facing their past didn't feel so paralyzing. Perhaps together they could write a new chapter for themselves and for Max. Maybe a movie night would be a good start, she suggested. Just us and Max, something fun, to lighten things up. We can talk freely, and I love that idea. Greg's enthusiasm matched her own. We can turn it into a family tradition, something he looks forward to. For the first time, the burden of the past felt lighter, as if the steps they were taking felt less like a weight and more like a bridge. Sarah's heart surged with a mix of excitement and determination. I think we can really do this. Then let us make it special, Greg said. Maybe popcorn and his favorite soda to kick things off? He wore a grin that she mirrored instinctively, and suddenly, the future didn't seem so daunting. I think he'd love that, she replied, as Max's laughter rang out, loud and joyous like music. It felt infectious, and she found herself smiling even wider. Suddenly, Max came bounding back to them, winded but radiant. "Did you hear? Emma says we can have a superhero party soon. You can be in charge of that planning," Sarah said, ruffling his hair. "Uh-huh. I'm going to get everyone capes." His excitement was palpable, and Sarah felt her heart fill. Together, they created a bubble around themselves, a new vision of family forged in love and honesty. Greg slid his hand into hers, giving it a squeeze, and she felt an electric warmth flow between them. "Sarah," a voice called from across the playground. It was the elderly couple they had met at the diner. The woman waved cheerily, her husband by her side, beaming at the small family they formed. "Looks like we're not the only ones looking for a movie night," she called out, her laughter lifting hearts. Sarah waved back, charmed by the unexpected support from strangers, knowing that the warmth radiating between people could make all the difference. In that instant, as laughter filled the air and hope kindled between them, Sarah realized something profound. They were all figuring things out in their own way, but when they faced obstacles together, they were destined for something closer to joy than feared. As twilight fell, wrapping the playground in a gentle embrace, Sarah stood a little taller, asking herself if this was a new beginning. Could their family's future be brighter than what lay behind? Just maybe, love was not about having all the answers. It was about holding on, taking one step at a time, and facing the truth together. And deep down, she knew they were ready for the journey ahead. Now, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to never miss our next exclusive stories and transformations. Leave a like now to help us fuel the algorithm and spread positivity. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible journey. And most importantly, share this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of inspiration in their lives. Don't wait not even one more second to be part of this amazing community.